Close your eyes for a moment, if you can. Let the room soften around you. Let the day's noise loosen its grip. You are here, not by accident, but because a part of you has always been curious about the silent language beneath thought, the soft compass that hums beneath reason, the strange, mysterious force we call intuition. What is it really? Is it the ghost of memory whispering from the shadows? Is it the heart speaking in a dialect the brain struggles to translate? Or is it something far older, a primal wisdom carried in the marrow of our bones? Tonight we'll unravel it together, not with cold facts alone, but with stories, science, and the kind of poetry that lets knowledge slip into your chest and not just your mind. But before we go further, let me ask you something. When was the last time you listened to a feeling without a reason and it turned out to be right? Write it in the comments, because I want this to be a conversation, a garden of whispers we collect together. And if you've ever found yourself here, listening in the quiet of night, searching for something both peaceful and profound, then subscribe, not just to support, but so we can keep walking this strange, dreamlike road together. Every step, every story, every question we share, it becomes part of this journey. So let the day dissolve. Let your breath fall steady. Welcome, dreamer, thinker, listener. This is MindPeace, and tonight we begin unraveling the science of intuition. It begins in the smallest way. You step into a room and, without speaking, you know the mood. You meet a stranger and, in the flicker of an instant, you sense whether trust is possible. You walk down a street and, without any evidence, something urges you to turn left instead of right. That flicker, that fragile lantern of knowing without knowing, is the first shape of intuition. But what is it? To scientists, intuition is the brain's rapid-fire recognition of patterns. It is the archive of your experiences, running silent calculations in the background, offering you results long before logic sharpens its pencil. To poets, it is the voice beneath the voice. To mystics, it is the soul remembering itself, and yet, you've felt it, haven't you? That split second where your chest tightened, your stomach fluttered, your skin hummed as though the body already knew what the mind had yet to catch. The fascinating part is this. Intuition is not separate from you. It is you. It is your body, your nervous system, your unconscious memory, and your emotions working in a perfect, hidden symphony. Pause for a second. Think back. Have you ever ignored that flicker, brushed it aside as nonsense, only to regret it later? Type yes in the comments if you have. Let others see they are not alone in that delicate tug of war between reason and feeling. Neuroscience tells us that intuition happens in less than a heartbeat. Literally, studies show that your brain can recognize patterns and send signals to the body before your conscious mind has even formed a thought. It's why a seasoned firefighter just knows a building is about to collapse. It's why a musician just feels where the melody wants to go. The conscious brain would take too long. Intuition is the shortcut that keeps us alive, creative, connected, but it's not flawless. Sometimes it misfires. Sometimes the whisper is an echo of bias, fear, or trauma disguised as truth. That's what makes intuition so mysterious. It is both the lantern that guides and the fog that confuses. Learning to live with it means learning to listen, but also learning to question. Tonight, we begin with this simple truth. Intuition is the first flicker, the candle flame before the reasoning spark. And like all flames, it needs tending, air, patience, attention. So let's breathe together and step deeper into this secret garden. Have you ever noticed how your body remembers things your mind forgets? The way your stomach tightens before an exam, even if you've studied well. The way your shoulders curl slightly inward when you walk down a street that feels unsafe. The way your heart suddenly quickens when you meet someone whose presence seems to glow. This is the body's archive, the silent library of every experience you've ever lived. It does not keep memories in words. It does not record events in neat sentences or tidy photographs. Instead, it stores them as sensations, as patterns of heartbeat, as rhythms of muscle and breath. While the conscious mind files stories in language, the body keeps its records in pulse and shiver. And it is here, in this deep, unspoken library, that intuition so often lives. When you say you have a gut feeling, you are not speaking in metaphor. The gut is covered in a vast network of neurons, sometimes called the second brain. This enteric nervous system is deeply connected to your emotional states. Butterflies in your stomach when you're in love, nausea when you're anxious, heaviness when you're in grief. These are the gut's ancient signatures. Your intuition borrows these physical symbols to send messages to your awareness. Imagine a vast bookcase in your body, each shelf filled not with books, but with echoes of experience, the accelerated heartbeats of danger, the warm softness of trust, the steadiness of calm after being safe. Every time something new happens, your body flips through those shelves, comparing sensations. Is this familiar? Does this belong with danger or safety or uncertainty? The answer rises before thought, before logic, as a feeling in your chest, a shift in your gut, a whisper in your breath. Science has a name for this: somatic markers. Antonio Damasio, a neuroscientist, discovered that the body stores emotional imprints of past experiences. When a similar situation arises, your body replays the old imprint, like a note on a violin string, vibrating in sympathy with another note. This resonance is what you feel as a hunch, a warning, or an attraction. Think of the time your hand hesitated on a door handle, even before you knew why, or the way you felt uneasy sitting beside someone who never spoke a word, but whose presence rippled with something unsettling. That was not magic. That was your body pulling a file from the archive, whispering, "I've seen this before. Be careful." Now, let's turn this idea into something even deeper. Your body is not just an archive of danger and safety. It is also an archive of creativity, of joy, of possibility. Think of the tingling on your skin when you suddenly stumble on a brilliant idea. Think of the way your chest feels light when you're in a place you love. These too are signals from the archive, subtle invitations from your nervous system, telling you that you are aligned with something meaningful. And yet, here is the paradox. The body does not always get it right. The archive is not perfect. Sometimes it misfiles. A trauma from childhood can be stamped on the nervous system so deeply that years later, the body still reacts to situations that no longer hold the same threat. You may feel sudden dread when there is no real danger, or a racing heart when nothing is wrong. This is when intuition becomes clouded, when the archive echoes too loudly with old pain. But even in this, there is hope, because to know your body is an archive is also to know you can reorganize the shelves through awareness, through mindful practice, through therapy, through compassion. You can begin to rewrite how your body responds. The archive is alive. It can change. Pause here with me. Take a slow, deep breath. Inhale until your ribs expand, then let the air spill out gently. Do this again. As you breathe, ask yourself, what is your body storing right now? Tension in the jaw? A flutter in the belly? A heaviness in the chest? These are not just sensations. They are messages, pages pulled from the archive. If you wish, share in the comments. What is your body holding at this very moment? Sometimes speaking it aloud, even to strangers, lightens its weight. Let's go even further. The body is not only an archive of individual memory, it is also an archive of collective memory. Think of instinct, the way birds know where to migrate, or how a newborn knows how to suckle without being taught. Some researchers believe we inherit not only genetic codes, but also predispositions shaped by generations before us. Epigenetics shows us that trauma and resilience both leave marks that ripple down through DNA expression. This means that part of your intuition, the feelings that rise with no explanation, may be borrowed from ancestors you never met. The echo of survival stories written into your cells. And isn't that a beautiful thought? That when your body warns you, it may be carrying the wisdom of centuries. When your body draws you towards someone or something, it may be replaying an ancient recognition, an inherited map of belonging. Now, how do we listen more carefully to this archive without being ruled by it? The first step is attention. Most of us live far from our bodies. We drown in thought, we forget sensation, we treat the body as a machine to carry the mind. But the truth is, your intuition speaks through sensation. So the more you practice noticing, where you hold tension, when your heartbeat shifts, how your breath changes, the more fluent you become in this hidden language. The second step is discernment. Not every signal is intuition. Some are fear, some are habit, some are echoes of old wounds. Discernment is learning to ask, does this feeling belong to the present moment, or is it a shadow from the past? That question alone can transform panic into perspective. And the third step is trust. Intuition grows louder when it is trusted. The more you test it gently, the more accurate it becomes. The body is a friend who speaks in whispers. When you listen, it learns to speak more clearly. Let me ask you now, have you ever had a time when your body knew before your mind and it saved you, or a time when your body misled you? and you realize later it was an old scar speaking. Write it in the comments if you're willing. Your story might be the one someone else needs to read tonight. Science, poetry, and your own life all circle back to the same truth. The body is not a prison, not just a vessel. It is a living, breathing archive, a library without words, a museum of every moment you have survived, loved, feared, and dreamed. And every time intuition stirs, it is the body pulling a file, handing it to you, saying, look, remember, choose. And maybe that's why intuition feels so intimate, because it is not a voice outside of us, but the deepest part of us speaking. So tonight, as you rest, feel your body as the great library it is. Thank it for the books it holds, even the heavy ones. And remember, each breath you take is the writing of a new page, the archiving of a new experience. One day, when your intuition flickers again, that breath you take right now may be the memory it calls upon. When you look into a mirror, you expect to see your face. You expect the reflection to be faithful, obedient, precise. But the unconscious mind is not like the polished glass in your bathroom. It is a mirror made of water, a surface that ripples, that distorts, that hides more than it reveals at first glance. And yet, it is always reflecting, always casting signals upward, from the depths of memory and instinct toward the bright flame of your awareness. This is where intuition lives, again and again in the unconscious, that vast unlit room in which the majority of your mind's furniture is stored. Think of how much you do each day without thinking. Breathing, walking, driving home along a familiar road, speaking in a language you learned long ago. All of this unfolds in the unconscious. It is not absent. It is not asleep. It is working tirelessly in the background, turning experience into reflex, reflex into guidance. Carl Jung called it the hidden sea beneath the boat of the conscious. Freud called it the repressed and forgotten. Neuroscience today calls it the backstage network, where billions of bits of information are sorted, filtered, and handed forward in fragments to the conscious mind. Whatever name you choose, the truth is this: the unconscious is a mirror, and intuition is the reflection that reaches you when the light of reason is too slow. Let's make this more human, more immediate. Have you ever met someone and felt, within seconds, that you could trust them, or that you should not? You did not list reasons. You did not write a pro-con chart. You simply felt it. That feeling did not come from thin air. Your unconscious was scanning their tone of voice, their posture, the micro movements of their face. It compared these tiny signals to the great archive of memories stored in your body. And then it sent the conclusion forward as a wave of intuition. You only felt the conclusion, not the countless calculations beneath it. The unconscious mirror reflects what the conscious eye cannot see. And yet, here is the paradox: it does not always reflect truth. Sometimes it reflects bias, prejudice, or fear, polished into the mirror by society, by upbringing, by trauma. The challenge, then, is learning to tell the difference between a reflection of wisdom and a reflection of shadow. Let's pause here. Close your eyes if you can. Think of a time you felt an immediate judgment about someone. Were you right, or was your feeling shaped by fear, by assumption, by echoes of the past? Write it in the comments, because sharing these stories does more than entertain. It helps all of us see how fragile and how powerful the unconscious mirror can be. Science gives us another image. Imagine the brain is two great rivers. One is the slow river, the conscious stream of thought, where reason lives, where decisions are deliberate. The other is the fast river, the unconscious torrent, where most of the water flows unseen, guiding the direction of the boat long before the captain is aware. Intuition rises from the fast river. It is the voice of that deeper current. Experiments show this in fascinating ways. In one study, participants were shown cards from two decks. One deck was rigged to lead to losses, the other to gains. Before participants consciously realized which deck was better, their bodies already knew. Their palms began to sweat when reaching for the losing deck, long before the mind could explain why. That sweat, that signal from the unconscious mirror, was intuition speaking. And yet, the unconscious is more than just a calculator. It is also a dreamer. When you sleep, when your conscious guard falls, the unconscious takes the stage. It arranges memories into symbols, emotions into landscapes, and often the next day you wake with a feeling, a hunch, a strange knowing that seems to have no source. Perhaps this too is intuition. the unconscious offering its nightly artwork to the conscious self. But the unconscious is not only individual. Jung believed in what he called the collective unconscious, a deep well of archetypes and symbols shared across humanity. This may sound mystical, but think of it. Why do so many myths across cultures echo one another? Why do humans dream of falling, of flying, of facing shadows in the dark? If there is a collective mirror, intuition may sometimes be its reflection too, an ancient shared wisdom whispering through us. Now, let us turn the mirror toward you. What is the unconscious reflecting right now? What patterns of breath, what restless memories, what subtle moods are shaping your perception? Often, when we slow down, like you are doing right now, here, listening, the unconscious mirror becomes clearer. Its ripples calm, its surface steadies, and in that stillness, intuition rises like a reflection of the stars. There is a practice here, if you wish to try. The next time you face a decision, pause, breathe. Ask your body and your unconscious for a picture, not a reason. What image comes to mind when you consider the choice? What feeling flickers in your chest? These are reflections from the unconscious mirror. They are not final answers, but they are guides. Gentle lanterns in the fog. But a warning too. Do not mistake the unconscious mirror for prophecy. It is a tool, not a god. It can mislead. It can echo wounds instead of wisdom. The art of living with intuition is the art of learning when the mirror is clear and when it is clouded. This takes patience. This takes humility. This takes love for yourself, even in error. So let me ask you, would you live differently if you trusted the whispers of your unconscious more? Would you slow down, listen, let yourself be guided by something softer than logic? Comment yes or no, because for some of us, simply saying it aloud is the first step toward practicing it. And as you drift deeper into this night, as you rest, remember this. Your unconscious is always reflecting, always whispering, always painting intuition on the canvas of your awareness. Sometimes faint, sometimes bold, but always present. Trust that. Question it. Dance with it. It is not an enemy. It is a mirror of you, for you, within you. And when you wake tomorrow and you feel that first flicker of knowing, perhaps you'll smile. Perhaps you'll remember that intuition is not magic. It is you, reflected in the unconscious mirror. Imagine, for a moment, two rivers running side by side. One is calm, calculated, and moves in straight, measured lines. This is the river of logic, the part of you that demands evidence, proof, and clarity before it dares to act. The other river is wilder, untamed, full of bends and sudden currents. It is intuition, whispering truths without needing to prove them. Every choice you make in life is a meeting point between these two rivers, and often they do not flow together easily. How many times in your life have you faced this tug of war? A decision at work, a relationship you weren't sure of, a path that seemed both inviting and dangerous. Logic told you one story, yet instinct told you another. Which voice did you follow? Did you lean into the safety of reasoning, or did you dare to trust that inexplicable nudge deep within? I'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments below, because your moment of hesitation might be the mirror someone else needs right now. You see, science often places these rivers in opposition. Logic is linked to the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for analysis, rational thought, step-by-step problem solving. Intuition, however, emerges from a network that bypasses this slow, deliberate thinking. It draws on patterns you don't consciously recognize, micro-expressions in a stranger's face, subtle tones in their voice, echoes of thousands of past experiences stored in your memory, all stitched together in a flash. And yet, here's the paradox. Both are necessary. If you lived by intuition alone, you might leap without looking, follow hunches that lead you into trouble, mistake fear for instinct. But if you lived only by logic, your life would become sterile, predictable, lifeless, stripped of the magic that arises when you dare to follow the unknown. Intuition is the heartbeat of the mysterious. Logic is the guardrail of the reasonable. Together, they form a duet. Think of a chess master. Studies show that the best players don't calculate every single move. They would never have enough time. Instead, they rely on intuition honed by years of practice. Their gut whispers the right move, and then their logical mind checks it, confirms it, strengthens it. It is not instinct against reason. It is instinct flowing into reason. So the question is not which one is better. The real question is, how do we make them dance together? How do we learn to let logic take its place without smothering intuition? How do we allow intuition to guide us without letting it drag us into chaos? Here's a secret. Intuition works best when you prepare the ground with knowledge. When you feed your mind with experience, patterns, observations, your subconscious has something to weave its tapestry with. A doctor, for example, may glance at a patient and just know what's wrong. Not because of magic, but because thousands of cases are sitting quietly in their memory, waiting to be connected. Logic built the foundation, intuition provided the spark. And yet, the reverse is also true. Sometimes intuition pushes us where logic refuses to go. Think of the great discoveries, the leaps of creativity, the risks taken in love, the journeys across oceans. Logic would have said no. Logic would have calculated the danger. But intuition whispered, yes, this is the way. And history remembers those who listened. I wonder, when was the last time you felt this tug between the two? Did you feel your chest tighten as logic argued against the quiet pulse of your heart? Did you surrender to reason, or did you step into the dark with faith in that inner whisper? Leave your answer below. I want to know how you navigated it, because these stories are the true science of intuition, lived and breathing in the lives of real people. So tonight, as you close your eyes and drift into that space between waking and dreaming, imagine these two rivers flowing within you. Neither one is wrong. Neither one is weaker. They are companions, pulling, guiding, shaping the course of your life. The real art lies not in choosing one over the other, but in learning how to listen when one speaks more clearly than the other. Sometimes logic will be your lantern. Sometimes intuition will be your compass. And together, they will carry you farther than either could alone. And if you're here listening, gently breathing into this moment, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let yourself become part of this journey. Because every comment you leave, every story you share, is another ripple in the river, another reminder that we are not navigating these waters alone. Close your eyes for a moment. Let your breath soften. Listen not with your ears, but with your skin, your heartbeat, the rise and fall of your chest. There is a language spoken here, a language older than words, quieter than thoughts, and far more honest than reason. This is the language of your body, and it is where intuition often speaks the loudest. Have you ever felt your stomach twist when something wasn't right, though you couldn't explain why? Or the way your chest seemed to expand with ease when you met someone trustworthy, as though your body leaned toward them before your mind had time to decide? These are not random signals. They are ancient, evolutionary cues designed to help you survive and to guide you toward what nourishes you. Science calls this the gut-brain axis. Within your gut live millions of neurons, forming what's sometimes called the second brain. This vast network is connected to your central nervous system, constantly sending messages, shaping emotions, influencing choices. When you say, "I feel it in my gut," you are not being poetic. You are describing a biological truth. But let's step beyond biology for a moment. What is the body really telling us? The heart quickens not only in fear but also in love. The breath catches not only in panic but also in awe. The skin prickles not only when cold, but when something deep within senses a hidden presence. Your body is a translator, carrying signals from the subconscious into the physical. I want you to reflect. What signals has your body given you recently? Did you ignore them, brushing them aside as nerves or imagination? Or did you pause, place your hand on your chest and listen? Share your answer in the comments, because your story may remind someone else to trust their own inner signals tonight. There is a tenderness in this bodily language. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it whispers. And the tragedy of modern life is that we have drowned these whispers beneath the noise. Constant screens, rushing schedules, endless distractions. To hear your body's quiet truth, you must return to stillness. Try it with me now. Notice your breath. Notice the space it creates. Feel the weight of your body against the ground or the chair. In this small act, you are tuning the instrument of intuition. Because the body cannot lie, it shows what the mind tries to hide. And intuition is not separate from the body. It is embodied awareness, alive in muscle and bone, in pulse and breath. When scientists study intuition, they often find that the body reacts to information before the mind is aware of it. In experiments, people's hearts quicken a fraction of a second before an image of danger appears on the screen, even though they don't consciously know what's coming. The body knows before the mind knows. It senses patterns, vibrations, frequencies, that escape rational thought. But here's the beauty. You can learn to listen more closely. Meditation, deep breathing, yoga, even simple silence. These are not just spiritual practices. They are ways of sharpening your inner ear to hear the whispers of the body. When you breathe deeply, when you slow down, you amplify the signals. And in those signals lives your intuition, waiting patiently to be heard. Let me ask you this. What does your body say right now as you listen to my voice, as you drift deeper into this calm space? Is it telling you to rest? To release something heavy? To trust something you've been resisting? If you dare, write it down below. Let your body speak into words. It may surprise you how much wisdom is already alive in your flesh. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, remember this. Your body is not separate from your mind. It is not merely a vessel. It is a living compass, a library of instincts, a subtle map of truths. To unravel the science of intuition is to come home to the body, to lean in when the stomach tightens, to follow when the heart expands, to listen when the breath pauses. And if you feel this resonance, if you find yourself nodding quietly, feeling the truth of these words in your chest, then take a breath with me and don't forget to subscribe. Because together, in this space, we are learning to honor what has always been within us, the quiet, patient language of the body. Picture your mind as a vast library, shelves stacked so high they vanish into shadows, aisles stretching farther than the eye can follow, each book holding a moment of your life. Some volumes are neatly labeled, birthdays, faces of loved ones, songs that still echo when you hum them, but most of the shelves? They hold stories you no longer remember consciously. Fragments, impressions, scents, voices, colors, all of them stored quietly, waiting. This is the subconscious library, and it is the hidden source of intuition. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt something was off, though you couldn't say why? Perhaps your subconscious remembered a similar room where tension hung heavy in the air, a flicker of movement at the edge of your vision, the faint strain of a voice tone you once associated with dishonesty. Consciously, you didn't piece it together, but the library whispered, "Pay attention. You've seen this before." This is the secret of intuition. It is not magic, though it feels magical. It is the subconscious drawing upon an immeasurable archive of experiences, stitching together patterns faster than reason can keep up with. Where logic works like a researcher flipping through pages, intuition works like the librarian herself, walking straight to the right book, pulling it off the shelf and pressing it into your hands. Now, let me ask you, what's the oldest memory you can recall? Is it a flash of childhood sunlight? The sound of a lullaby? The smell of rain on warm stone? Share it below in the comments, because every memory you summon tonight is another candle lit in this infinite library. And as others read your story, they may find their own shelves glowing brighter. Scientists have discovered that much of what we know doesn't sit in the conscious mind. Our brains are constantly processing sensory data beneath awareness. Faces, sounds, textures, even the rhythm of people's speech. Intuition thrives on these unnoticed details, drawing connections silently. This is why sometimes you know a person is lying without a shred of evidence. Your subconscious library is comparing micro-expressions, tiny muscle shifts, the subtlest patterns that your conscious eyes never recognized. And here's the fascinating part. The more experiences you store, the richer your library becomes. A traveler who's walked many roads has shelves overflowing with textures and signs, so their intuition sharpens like a blade. A musician, trained by years of sound, can feel when a note is wrong before it's played. A parent, after years of nurturing, senses a child's mood before a word is spoken. Each shelf, each book, each detail becomes fuel for intuitive knowing. But this library is not always gentle. It holds trauma as well as joy. Old wounds are written on its pages. Sometimes intuition warns us sharply, not because danger is present, but because it remembers an echo of danger from long ago. This is why we must read carefully. Not every whisper is prophecy. Sometimes it is memory replaying itself. Still, the power is undeniable. Think about dreams. How often do they feel like nonsense, and yet hold strange clarity afterward? Dreams are the librarians at work, reshelving, reorganizing, connecting forgotten threads. Intuition often draws from this dreamlike process, weaving knowledge that feels irrational, but is deeply rooted in memory. So how do you strengthen this hidden library? You feed it. Live fully. Notice details. Smell the rain. Listen to the cracks in someone's laugh. Observe the way light bends in water. The more shelves you fill, the more material intuition has to work with. And then, just as important, you must trust it. When the librarian hands you a book, don't ignore her. Open it, read it, see what it has to say. Right now, as you lie here listening, drifting between waking and rest, I want you to imagine walking through your own subconscious library. Run your fingers along the spines of the books. What volumes glow for you? What forgotten pages want to be read tonight? Perhaps an old memory surfaces, one you thought was lost. Don't turn away from it. Let it remind you that your intuition is not random. It is a voice built on all that you have lived. So as you breathe gently now, remember, every whisper of intuition is your subconscious librarian guiding you. She is patient, tireless, and endlessly wise. And the more you trust her, the more clearly she will speak. And if you feel the truth of this in your chest, if some memory has already stirred while listening, let me invite you. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your memory below. Together we are filling a larger library, not just our own, but a shared one, where wisdom travels between souls. Not every whisper within us tells the truth. Not every shiver along the spine is prophecy. Not every gut feeling is a compass pointing north. There are nights when intuition falters, when the inner voice is not a guide, but an echo of fear. When what we think is instinct is only memory dressed in disguise. And if we are to unravel the science of intuition honestly, we must sit with this uncomfortable truth. Sometimes intuition gets it wrong. Have you felt this before? That moment you were so sure, convinced the path ahead was right, that the person before you was trustworthy, that the decision you made was guided by some deep wisdom. And yet, in the aftermath, you realized you were mistaken. Tell me, if you dare, in the comments, what's the moment your intuition betrayed you? Because your story, shared here, might be the mirror someone else needs to see tonight. Science offers us clues as to why intuition fails. The subconscious library we spoke of before is not just filled with wisdom. It is also cluttered with biases, fears, scars. When you encounter a stranger who reminds you of someone who once hurt you, your body may signal danger even when none exists. When you're caught in the grip of anxiety, your intuition may scream at shadows, interpreting every sound, every look, every silence as a threat. In those moments, intuition is not truth. It is memory replaying itself louder than logic, and yet it feels so real. That is the peril and the beauty of intuition. It carries certainty in its voice. Even when it is wrong, it rarely sounds uncertain. That is why gamblers follow hunches into ruin, why lovers stay when they should leave, why explorers march toward mirages thinking water waits beyond the dunes. Intuition seduces us with conviction, but conviction is not always accuracy. So what can we do? How can we tell when intuition is a true compass and when it is only static? The answer lies in balance. Logic and intuition are meant to converse. When intuition whispers, logic should not be silenced, but invited into the conversation. Why do I feel this way? You might ask. Is this instinct or is this fear wearing a mask? Think of pilots. In the cockpit, intuition may urge one action in a crisis, but they are trained to check instruments, to verify, to listen both inward and outward. This is why aviation is so safe, because intuition and logic must dance, each checking the other. And in our lives, we must learn the same discipline. Still, I wonder, can failure be part of intuition's wisdom? Perhaps each mistake is another book in the subconscious library, another thread in the tapestry. Perhaps your wrong turns are still guiding you, not to the destination you thought you'd reach, but toward growth you never would have chosen otherwise. Have you ever looked back on a misstep and thought, if I hadn't gone wrong there, I never would have found this path? Share that with me below if you have, because sometimes the very failure of intuition becomes the seed of its deepening. And here is something gentle to hold in your heart tonight. Intuition does not ask for perfection. It is not an oracle. It is a partner. Partners stumble. Partners miscommunicate. Partners learn. And intuition is no different. It grows with you. It falters with you. It sharpens through the very act of being wrong. So the next time your intuition misleads you, do not abandon it. Sit with it. Ask what it was trying to protect you from. Ask what memory it drew upon, what bias, what wound. Then thank it. Yes, thank it for trying to keep you safe. even if clumsily. In that moment, you are not rejecting intuition. You are refining it, teaching it to speak more clearly next time. And if you're still with me here, listening in the quiet, perhaps your heart feels a little softer toward that inner voice. Perhaps you realize it's not betrayal when intuition fails. It's simply the human condition, the beautiful, fragile attempt of the mind to guide itself through the dark. Take a breath with me. Feel the air move in and out. In this simple act, you are listening again, and maybe that's all intuition ever asks of us. To listen, to trust, and to forgive when it stumbles. And if this reflection resonates, don't forget to like, to subscribe, to leave your own story below. Because your story of intuition, whether triumph or failure, becomes part of this shared map we are drawing together, one voice at a time. There is a silence between two people that speaks louder than words. The glance that lingers a second too long, the shift of a shoulder, the softening of a voice, the way the air feels lighter or heavier when they walk into the room. This is where intuition often blooms most vividly, in relationships, romantic, familial, friendly, even fleeting encounters with strangers. Our intuition is alive in the spaces between souls. It senses what the tongue hides, what the mind edits, what the body cannot disguise. Tell me, have you ever known someone's mood before they spoke it? Have you ever felt the hidden sadness behind a smile, the unspoken affection behind a silence? Share it below, because in your story lies the universal truth. Our intuition is never more awake than when it reaches for another human heart. Science tells us relationships are a dance of signals. Micro-expressions flicker across a face in milliseconds, too quick for conscious recognition, but not too quick for your subconscious. A tremor in the voice, a hesitation in tone, a brief pause before answering. All of these slip into the subconscious library we spoke of earlier. Intuition gathers them, weighs them, whispers, something's wrong, something's right. Lean in, step back. But relationships also reveal intuition's paradox. For those we love most, intuition is often clearest and most clouded at once. Clearest, because years of shared experience sharpen our sensitivity. We can sense when our partner is restless before they even know it themselves. Clouded, because love colors our perception, turning warnings into wishful thinking or making fears seem like truths. Sometimes intuition tells us what we want to hear, not what we need to hear. Think about the beginning of love. So often people say, I just knew. They couldn't explain it, but they felt pulled towards someone, as though the soul recognized something familiar, something safe, something necessary. Science may reduce this to pheromones, body language, similarity of values, but does that diminish the magic? No, it deepens it. Because intuition is both biological and mystical, rooted in chemistry, yet flowering in mystery. And then there is the other side, when intuition whispers warnings, the uneasy feeling that someone's affection is not real, that their silence hides betrayal, that their laughter is hollow. How many hearts have been spared or scarred by listening or not listening to that quiet signal? Let me ask you this, and be honest with yourself. Has your intuition ever told you to stay when logic said leave, or told you to leave when logic said stay? Did you follow it? Were you glad, or did you regret it? I want you to write this in the comments, because your honesty might cradle someone else who is standing at the same crossroads right now. But let's not forget, intuition in relationships is not only about warning and guiding, it is also about deepening. When you trust that inner sense, you learn to see the other more fully. You learn to pause when they need silence, to hold when they need closeness, to step back when they need space. It is empathy turned inward, a listening beyond words. Here's a tender exercise you can try. Next time you sit with someone you care for, resist the urge to analyze their words. Instead, feel into their presence. Notice your body. Does your chest relax or tighten? Does your breath deepen or shorten? Listen to what arises in the silence. This is intuition guiding you to meet them beyond the surface. And yet, like all things, it requires balance. Intuition can be clouded by insecurity, past wounds, projection. Sometimes what you feel is not the other's truth, but your own shadow reflected back. This is why we must pair intuition with gentle inquiry. When in doubt, ask. Not just yourself, but the other. Intuition may whisper, but communication confirms. So tonight, as you rest in this quiet space, imagine all the people you hold close. Family, friends, lovers, companions. Imagine the invisible threads of intuition stretching between you, carrying signals that words cannot. These threads are delicate, but they are real. And if you choose to trust them, nurture them, they become the unspoken foundation of your most sacred bonds. And if this reflection stirs something in you, if you're remembering a moment where your intuition touched the heart of another, let me invite you to like this video, to subscribe, and to share your story in the comments. Because your relationships, your instincts, your quiet knowings are not just yours. They are part of the great web that connects us all. Creativity is the soul's wild river. It does not flow in straight lines, it does not obey rules, and it cannot be summoned with force. It comes like dawn spilling over the horizon, soft, unannounced, impossible to predict. And yet, if you look closely, you will see that creativity is born of the same wellspring as intuition. Think about it. Where do ideas come from? That sudden melody that slips into the mind of a musician at midnight. That brushstroke an artist feels is right, though no sketch had planned it. That sentence a poet writes, as though it were whispered by some unseen hand. These are not products of slow logic. They are flashes, sparks. The subconscious library sending signals, the body's whispers turned into creation. Intuition is the muse, and creativity is the song. Have you ever had a moment where an idea just appeared, fully formed, as if dropped from the sky? Where did it come from? Share it with me below, because your story of creation may inspire someone listening here tonight to honor their own sudden spark. Science, of course, has its explanations. Studies of the brain show that creativity often involves a network called the default mode network, active when the mind is at rest, daydreaming, drifting. This is the playground of intuition, where subconscious connections rise without effort. When you're in the shower, on a walk, lying in bed half asleep, that's when ideas bloom. Why? Because the logical brain has loosened its grip and intuition is free to dance. But let's not reduce it to neurons. Creativity feels like magic for a reason. Intuition is not merely recalling old patterns, it is weaving them into something entirely new. It does not just say, "This reminds me of that." It says, "This and that, and something unseen. Together they become this new thing." It is alchemy, and alchemy feels like wonder. Think of Einstein, who spoke often about intuition. His theory of relativity did not come only from equations. It began with a vision, a daydream of riding on a beam of light. Logic came later to test and refine it, but the spark was pure intuition, pure creativity. The same is true for artists, inventors, dreamers throughout history. Intuition whispers the impossible. Creativity shapes it into form, and logic builds the bridge to make it real. And you too are creative. Even if you don't write or paint or compose, every decision you make, every way you solve problems, every moment you imagine a future that does not yet exist, that is creativity. And every time you trust your gut to guide you through that process, you are practicing the science of intuition. So I want to ask you, when was the last time you followed a creative hunch? Did you sketch something just for the joy of it? Did you cook a meal without a recipe? Did you solve a problem at work by ignoring the manuals and trusting your own approach? Leave it in the comments, because creativity is not reserved for artists. It is the birthright of every soul. But let's not forget the resistance. Creativity scares us because it feels uncertain, unproven. Logic says, "This will fail." Intuition says, "Try." And in that moment, you must decide whom to trust. Sometimes you leap, sometimes you retreat, but the leaps, those are the moments that carry you into new worlds. So tonight, as you sink into this quiet space, I want you to remember, your intuition is not only a guide through danger, not only a whisper in relationships, it is also a fountain of creativity. Every dream you've ever held, every idea that brushed against your skin like a breeze, that is intuition calling you to create. And if this reflection awakens something in you, if you feel a spark stirring, even the faintest one, promise yourself you won't ignore it tomorrow. Promise to follow the whisper, however small. And don't forget to subscribe, to like, to share your own sparks in the comments. Because this channel, this community, is a canvas too, painted by the stories and creations of each one of you listening. There is a hush that falls when we speak of intuition, as though it were flawless, as though every whisper it offers is a divine compass pointing only toward truth. But here, in this quieter chamber of thought, Let us pause and admit the other side, the shadows behind the golden glow. For intuition, like any human gift, is not perfect. It is shaped by the limits of memory, the bias of experience, and the fragile architecture of belief. Imagine for a moment you are standing at a crossroads. One path feels right, something in your chest insists it is the way. Yet months later, after walking far along it, you realize you were mistaken. The inner voice was not prophecy, it was habit. It was your fear, dressed as instinct, nudging you toward what felt familiar rather than what was true. This is the paradox of intuition. It is powerful, yes, but it is not infallible. It is more like a candle in a vast cathedral. Its flame illuminates what is near, but it cannot reveal every corner. Sometimes the flame wavers, casting shadows that look like truths when they are only illusions. Think of a gambler, convinced that because the dice have landed black 5 times in a row, surely red is next. Their gut insists on it, their pulse sings with certainty, and yet the dice, impartial and unfeeling, fall black again. This is intuition ensnared by bias, the human brain's yearning for patterns, even in the chaos of chance. Or consider love, the greatest stage on which intuition performs its most dramatic acts. The spark you feel when you meet someone, that unshakable knowing that they are the one, may sometimes blossom into a lifelong bond. But other times, that very spark is only chemistry, a collision of pheromones and unmet needs disguised as destiny. Many hearts have broken upon the rocks of misplaced intuition, mistaking desire for truth. So why does intuition sometimes mislead us? The answer lies in the architecture of the mind. Intuition is the child of memory, emotion, and subconscious association. If your past has been colored by pain, then intuition may guide you away from what could heal you, simply because it resembles something that once hurt. If your history has been bathed in certain cultural beliefs, then your inner voice may whisper in that accent, reflecting bias rather than clarity. It is easy, when we trust too fully, to forget that intuition does not stand alone. It is not an oracle, untouched by flaw. It is one sense among many. And just as your eyes can be tricked by optical illusions, your intuition can be tricked by the illusions of thought. But here is the tender truth. This imperfection does not diminish intuition's worth. It reminds us instead that intuition is not a master, but a companion. It works best when it walks hand in hand with reason. When the two converse, intuition whispering from the depths of the subconscious, reason checking the whisper against the evidence, then the choices we make are both soulful and sound. Ask yourself then, when has intuition misled you? Was there a moment you felt certain, only to discover later you had been mistaken? Share it below in the comments if you feel called. Your story may be the lantern that helps someone else recognize the illusions their own intuition has spun. For intuition's beauty lies not in perfection, but in dialogue. When it falters, it teaches us humility. When it guides us rightly, it teaches us trust. And together, those lessons form a deeper wisdom, one that transcends both instinct and intellect, weaving them into a harmony more reliable than either could be alone. And so, as we close this chapter, remember, intuition is not a map of certainty. It is a compass of feeling. It may waver, it may mislead, but it also invites us to listen, to reflect, to discern, to live not with blind faith in every whisper, but with an open heart, tuned to the subtle music of the mind. Close your eyes for a moment and picture a great bridge suspended between two cliffs. On one side, you see the towering citadel of logic, its walls built from evidence, its towers rising on the solid stones of reason, mathematics, and analysis. On the other side, across the deep valley, there lies the wild forest of intuition, untamed, alive, filled with whispers that come from unseen roots beneath the soil. The bridge between them is fragile, woven not of steel or stone, but of us, of our willingness to walk both ways and not choose one at the expense of the other. For too long, the world has argued as if logic and intuition were enemies. Logic, cold and methodical, accused intuition of being reckless, emotional, unreliable. Intuition, fluid and wordless, accused logic of being heartless, slow, blind to the things beyond calculation. Yet here is the deeper truth. They were never enemies. They are the twin currents of the same river, the left hand and the right hand of human knowing. When we pit them against each other, we only divide ourselves. Think of it this way. Logic is the lamp that illuminates the road ahead, steady and clear. Intuition is the instinct that makes you choose one road over another, even when both seem equally lit. Together, they form a kind of inner duet, a conversation between the measurable and the immeasurable. Science itself, for all its devotion to logic, has been born of intuition. Einstein's theory of relativity did not arrive first as equations. It arrived as a vision, a feeling, a deep intuitive leap about riding on a beam of light. Only afterward did logic come, carefully sculpting equations around that dream. Intuition provided the spark. Logic provided the structure. Without one, there would be no fire. Without the other, there would be no hearth to hold it. And so in our daily lives, this balance is just as vital. Imagine you are offered a new job. Logic examines the salary, the commute, the benefits. Intuition whispers about the energy of the people you met in the interview, the heaviness or lightness you felt in your chest when you walked into the office. Alone, either might fail you. Logic might lead you to a golden prison, great pay, but soul-draining. Intuition alone might lure you toward excitement but instability. But together, they help you find not just a job, but a path that is both sustainable and alive. The harmony comes when we learn to let each have its turn. Logic is the steady captain steering the ship by charts and stars. Intuition is the sailor who senses the storm before it is seen, who feels the subtle shifts in the wind. To ignore either is to risk disaster. To honor both is to sail with wisdom. So the question becomes, how do we cultivate this balance in ourselves? It begins with listening, not rushing to silence the whisper of intuition when it arises, but neither letting it command us without reflection. It means asking, why do I feel this? What might my subconscious be pointing toward? Does the evidence support or challenge it? It means holding space for both the language of numbers and the language of feelings. And in those rare, luminous moments when logic and intuition converge, when the data aligns with the whisper in your chest, that is when decisions feel effortless, as though the universe itself is nodding in agreement. Those moments are rare gifts, but they come more often when we learn to give both voices equal respect. So tonight, as you lie in the hush of your room, ask yourself, have you leaned too far to one side? Have you silenced your intuition in favor of hard evidence alone? Or have you followed only your feelings, leaving logic behind like a forgotten friend? What would it feel like to invite both to the table? To let reason pour the tea, while intuition chooses the flavor? If you feel called, share below in the comments. Are you more logical or more intuitive? How do you find your balance between the two? For in the end, this balance is not just about making better choices. It is about wholeness, about honoring the full spectrum of your mind, about learning that to be human is to be both scientist and poet, both calculator and dreamer. And when those two dance together, the music they create is nothing less than wisdom. There is a gentle misconception that intuition is something bestowed at birth, fixed and unchangeable, like the color of your eyes or the lines on your palms. But intuition is not a static gift. It is a living muscle, and like any muscle, it can be trained, strengthened, sharpened into something both reliable and luminous. Think of intuition as an instrument, lying quietly in the corner of a room. For some, it hums faintly without effort, its strings already tuned by experience or temperament. But for most of us, the instrument sits in silence until we choose to pick it up, to run our fingers across its strings, to coax out the music hidden within. And the more we play, the clearer the tones become. So how do we train this inner voice? The first step is silence. Our modern world is loud, filled with endless notifications, opinions, and distractions that drown out the whispers of the subconscious. To hear intuition, one must create space for it to speak. This might mean sitting quietly in meditation, walking slowly beneath trees, or lying in the stillness of night before sleep. In these spaces, the mind softens, the noise fades, and the subtle impressions of intuition rise like fireflies in the dark. The second step is awareness. Intuition speaks not in sentences, but in sensations. Goosebumps, a sudden warmth in the chest, a tightening in the gut, an inexplicable sense of peace. Training intuition means learning to notice these signals without dismissing them as meaningless. Keep a journal if you can. Write down when you felt something before it happened, or when you ignored a feeling and later wished you hadn't. Over time, patterns emerge, and you begin to recognize the language your intuition speaks uniquely to you. The third step is trust. Imagine a child speaking softly, uncertain if anyone is listening. If you ignore the child, their voice grows quieter. But if you respond, if you nod, smile, and act on their words, the child grows more confident, their voice steadier. Intuition is much the same. When you act on its whispers, even in small ways, you reinforce the connection. You teach your inner voice that it is welcome, that it matters. And with each act of trust, the voice grows clearer. But training intuition is not about blind obedience. It is about discernment. This is where the balance with logic returns. Listening to intuition, yes, but also testing it, refining it, learning when the whisper is true guidance and when it is merely the echo of fear or habit. Like a sculptor, you chip away the rough edges until what remains is sharper, purer. Practical exercises can help. Try simple decisions: what to eat, which route to take, when to call a friend, and pause to notice the first subtle feeling that arises before logic weighs in. Follow it, see what unfolds. Over time, this builds confidence in your ability to sense before you analyze, or engage in creative play. Painting, writing, improvising music for creativity and intuition are sisters, both born of the subconscious. The more you let yourself create without judgment, the more your intuitive pathways open. Some cultures have long cultivated practices for this training. In Zen traditions, monks sit in stillness, learning to observe thoughts without clinging to them, sharpening awareness until the subtlest feelings become clear. Indigenous shamans often listen deeply to dreams, believing them to be voices of the subconscious, a place where intuition speaks with symbols instead of words. Athletes too train intuition in motion. They call it muscle memory, but it is more than that. It is the body's quiet knowing, refined through repetition until action becomes instinct. Training intuition is, at its heart, about deepening your relationship with yourself. It is about learning to trust the quiet hum beneath the noise, to recognize that within you lies a compass already aligned with truths you may not yet consciously understand. And the more you nurture it, the more it will guide you, not as a flawless oracle, but as a loyal companion on your journey. So tonight, as you rest, try this. Before you drift into sleep, ask your inner voice a gentle question, something simple, something that matters to you. Then let go. Do not force the answer. Let it come as it will. Perhaps in a dream, perhaps in the calm certainty you feel upon waking, and when it does, honor it. Write it down, trust it, train it. If you feel open, share in the comments. How do you listen to your intuition? Do you meditate, journal, or find your whispers in dreams? What practices have helped you tune into that inner voice? For intuition is not a gift of the few, it is the inheritance of us all. But like any inheritance, it must be claimed, cared for, and practiced until it shines. Picture this. Centuries ago, a wanderer walked through the forest at dusk. There was no map in his hand, no phone in his pocket, no glowing screens to light his way. And yet, he knew where to tread. He felt the rhythm of the earth beneath his soles, smelled the faint shift of the wind that warned of rain, and sensed the stillness of animals that hinted at danger. His survival depended not on tools, but on the fine-tuned orchestra of his intuition, trained by silence, sharpened by necessity. Now, look at us. We wake to the buzz of a phone before we even hear the birds. We follow GPS lines across landscapes we barely notice. We consult weather apps instead of reading the sky. We lean on reviews instead of trusting our impressions. And we Google answers before the question has even finished blooming in our mind. Modern life, in its brilliance, has dulled the very sense that once guided us through the unknown. Intuition hasn't vanished, but it sits quietly, overshadowed by constant noise, waiting for us to call it forward again. Technology has given us endless access to knowledge, but with it comes dependency. Why listen inwardly when algorithms shout answers? Why trust the tug of your chest when data insists otherwise? And yet, if you've ever felt lost, even while your GPS told you exactly where you were, you know, there is more to navigation, more to life than coordinates. The map is not the journey. In the modern world, intuition often wears a disguise. It may come as a hunch that a text should be sent to someone who later admits they needed your words. It may arrive as a soft resistance when scrolling through opportunities, nudging you to skip one offer while lingering on another. Even surrounded by screens, the inner voice does not abandon us. It simply waits for us to quiet the glare long enough to hear it. Yet modern society is not only noise. Paradoxically, it can also amplify intuition. Think of artists weaving music from silence, their melodies guided as much by unseen instinct as by training. Think of innovators whose breakthroughs do not emerge solely from spreadsheets, but from flashes of vision. Moments when the subconscious, stitched together from years of unseen data, suddenly presents a spark of knowing. Even in boardrooms, intuition whispers in the spaces numbers cannot fully explain. A manager may choose a candidate not only for their resume, but for the unspoken warmth felt in their handshake, the subtle resonance of presence. But here is the dilemma. Modern culture does not always honor intuition. We praise logic, productivity, evidence, things that can be quantified and displayed in charts. Intuition, being quiet and invisible, is often dismissed as unprofessional or unscientific, and so we train ourselves to ignore it, to silence the tremor in our chest when the statistics say otherwise. The result? We drift further from a wisdom that once kept us alive. Training intuition in the modern age requires deliberate rebellion. It means turning the phone off for an hour and sitting with nothing but your breath. It means walking without headphones, letting the rhythm of the world impress itself upon you. It means questioning the endless tide of information and daring to say, I will listen inwardly, too. It does not mean abandoning logic or technology, they are gifts, but remembering that tools are extensions, not replacements, of the soul's compass. Here's a thought for you. How different would your day feel if, just once, you let intuition, not the algorithm, not the search engine, choose what book to read, what food to eat, whom to call, where to walk? Would you end up somewhere unexpected? Would you discover something you didn't know you were longing for? I invite you to share in the comments. Where do you feel your intuition most clearly in today's world? Is it in moments of creativity, in conversations, in quiet pauses between tasks? Or do you feel it is drowned, waiting to be reawakened? Because intuition is not outdated. It is not a relic of our ancestors. It is as necessary now as it was in the forest centuries ago, perhaps more so, for in a world saturated with noise, those who still hear their inner voice walk with a kind of clarity that no algorithm can offer. Let us now descend from the forest of metaphor and step quietly into the laboratory of the mind. For intuition, though it feels mystical, is not separate from the flesh and fire of the brain. Behind the whispers of instinct, there are circuits, sparks, and hidden networks at work, an orchestra playing just below conscious hearing. To understand intuition more deeply, we must ask, what is happening inside the brain when we say, I just knew? The answer lies in the extraordinary collaboration of regions spread across the brain. The prefrontal cortex, the rational architect of thought, sits at the surface, known for weighing options and testing evidence. But intuition rarely begins here. Instead, it rises first from the depths, from the limbic system, where emotions stir and memories hum in quiet storage. The amygdala, that almond-shaped sentinel of feeling, can fire in less than a heartbeat, signaling danger before the conscious mind has processed the facts. Have you ever flinched before realizing what startled you? That was intuition, rooted in neural speed, keeping you safe before logic had time to arrive. Yet intuition is more than fear. It is pattern recognition at lightning speed. The brain is a library of lived experience, each encounter stored not only as memory, but as associations, connections, fragments of images, smells, tones of voice. The hippocampus, master librarian, retrieves these fragments when a new situation arises. The subconscious knits them together invisibly, and suddenly, without explanation, you know. You cannot point to the evidence, but your brain has already seen the echoes of this moment before, hidden in the folds of experience. Neuroscientists sometimes call this the thin slicing mechanism, the ability of the brain to make rapid judgments based on minimal information. Consider a firefighter entering a burning building. Without conscious thought, he senses something is wrong, shouts for his team to leave, and moments later the floor collapses. Later, he cannot explain how he knew, but the brain had noticed subtle cues, shifts in heat, sounds of weakening beams, faster than he could articulate. That knowing was intuition, carried by neural pathways honed through training. Another key player is the insula, buried deep within the folds of the brain. It acts like a translator of bodily sensations, turning the flutter of your stomach, the quickening of your pulse, into signals that the mind interprets as a hunch. Intuition often speaks through the body first, through what we call gut feelings. The insula makes sure those whispers are delivered to consciousness, even if the reasons remain hidden. And beneath it all, the default mode network, those regions active when the mind drifts and daydreams, plays a role as well. In those quiet moments when you are not focused on a task, the brain weaves together loose threads, finding patterns and possibilities. That flash of insight in the shower, that sudden solution while driving, these are not accidents. They are the brain's backstage crew, stitching together intuition while you rest. Still, neuroscience reminds us that intuition is not always correct. Bias is built into the brain. The same circuits that help us recognize patterns can also trap us in false ones. The amygdala may trigger fear where no threat exists. The hippocampus may pull the wrong memory from its shelves. This is why intuition must be trained, questioned, refined. The machinery of the mind is powerful, but not infallible. So when we speak of intuition, we are not speaking of magic in the sense of the supernatural. We are speaking of magic in the sense of nature itself, complex, mysterious, elegant. Billions of neurons, trillions of connections, working in silence to deliver a whisper before you even know what you're asking. Does this make intuition less beautiful, knowing the science behind it? I would argue the opposite. For if intuition is the subconscious weaving of memory, emotion, and sensation, then every whisper it offers is a mosaic of your entire life. It is your body remembering what your mind has forgotten. It is your experience singing to you in a language beyond words. And so, when you next feel that gut pull or subtle nudge, know that it is not baseless. It is your brain's ancient wisdom, your biology's quiet gift. Logic may ask for evidence, and rightly so, but do not dismiss the whisper simply because it speaks without proof. It is your story, your survival, your subconscious, all converging in a single note of guidance. If you feel like sharing, let me ask you, do you trust the science more or the mystery? When intuition rises in you, do you see it as brain chemistry or something greater than science can measure? Write in the comments, let's weave both perspectives together. Let us move into a softer, more human territory where intuition and emotion intertwine, weaving something delicate yet profoundly powerful, emotional intelligence. For while intuition often guides us in practical decisions, its truest artistry blooms in the realm of human connection. It is here, in the quiet language of feelings, that intuition becomes not only a compass for the self, but also a bridge to others. Think about this. How many times have you entered a room and felt the atmosphere before anyone spoke? Perhaps the air seemed heavy, tense, as though words unsaid clung to the walls, or perhaps the room glowed with warmth, laughter shimmering like invisible light. You knew it instantly, without needing a single explanation. That is intuition in its most tender form, an unspoken reading of emotions, a knowing that is rooted not in logic, but in empathy. Neuroscience whispers that this capacity is not random. Our brains are threaded with mirror neurons, tiny sparks that fire not only when we act, but when we witness another acting. When someone smiles, your brain lights up as though you are smiling too. When someone cries, a shadow of their pain ripples through your nervous system. This mirroring is the biological seed of empathy and the soil in which emotional intuition grows. But emotional intelligence is more than mere resonance. It is the ability to sense these signals, interpret them with care, and respond with wisdom. Imagine meeting a friend who insists they are fine, their words painted with calm. Yet you feel the strain in their tone, the small flicker in their eyes, and your intuition leans in to whisper, "No, they are hurting." Logic might accept their words at face value, but intuition hears the truth beneath. And emotional intelligence allows you to ask softly, "Are you sure? You seem a little different today." In that moment, connection deepens, trust blooms. You become a mirror in which they can safely be seen. This dance between intuition and emotional intelligence extends far beyond personal relationships. Leaders, teachers, healers, artists, those who guide others must learn to listen to the currents of emotion that flow silently beneath the surface. A skilled teacher senses when a classroom is restless before the first yawn escapes. A leader feels the unspoken hesitation in their team before doubt becomes dissent. A healer notices the tremor in a patient's voice that says more than their medical chart ever could. These are not guesses. They are the refined senses of emotional intuition at work. But as with all intuition, there are pitfalls. Bias can cloud empathy. We may project our own feelings onto others, mistaking their silence for sadness when it is only thoughtfulness, or their calm for indifference when it is quiet strength. Emotional intelligence requires humility, the willingness to sense deeply, but also to check, to ask, to listen, to let the other confirm or correct what your intuition perceives. Without this balance, intuition risks becoming assumption. So how do we train this fusion of intuition and empathy? Begin with presence. Put down the phone when someone speaks. Watch their eyes. Listen not just to their words, but to their pauses, their sighs, the way their shoulders rise or fall. Let your own nervous system tune itself to theirs. It is in these quiet attentions that intuition sharpens. Then, practice reflection. When you sense something, when your chest tightens as someone speaks, or your skin warms in their joy, pause and ask, what am I picking up? Is it theirs or is it mine? This question alone can deepen awareness, helping you separate projection from perception. And finally, cultivate compassion. Intuition without compassion can feel invasive, like peering through a window uninvited. But when paired with care, it becomes a gift, a way of saying, I see you, I feel you, you are not alone. So tonight, as you rest, think of the people in your life. Who have you sensed without words? Who has sensed you? Perhaps share in the comments a time when someone saw through your mask with nothing more than a gentle glance. These stories remind us that intuition, at its heart, is not just about survival or decision-making. It is about love, about the mysterious thread that connects us, soul to soul, beneath the noise of speech. For in emotional intelligence, intuition finds its noblest expression, not only guiding us through life, but weaving us together, reminding us that to be human is to feel with and for one another. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the air around you is not empty, not void, but woven. Every breath you take, every step you make, every flicker of light that touches your skin is supported by threads you cannot see, a grand lattice beneath the theater of existence. It is silent, invisible, yet it trembles like a spider's web when thought passes through it. Some traditions call it the Akashic record. Others whisper about it as the quantum fabric. But whatever name we give it, the lattice is there, binding you to everything that has ever been and everything that ever will be. Think of the last time you felt a shiver without reason, the hairs rising at the back of your neck as if someone walked over your grave. That sensation is the lattice stirring. Think of déjà vu, that uncanny return of something you've never lived yet feel you have. That too is the lattice echoing through your perception. And when you dream of places you've never visited, speaking with faces you've never met, it is not just imagination. It's a vibration carried across that hidden net, slipping into your sleeping mind. Now let us push deeper. The lattice is not merely memory or imagination, it is architecture. Just as a cathedral's stained glass filters the sunlight into holy colors, the lattice filters possibility into reality. Every choice you make, every decision you discard, they ripple through the threads. Somewhere, another version of you picks the path you avoided, and the lattice holds it all together, infinite you stitched into one fabric. But there is something even more profound. The lattice doesn't just hold life, it remembers it. Every gesture, every whisper, every forgotten moment has been woven into the strands. That smile you gave to a stranger years ago still vibrates within the web, echoing forever. That argument that left you hollow didn't vanish. It is stored, vibrating still, waiting for resonance. Some call this karma, others memory of the universe. It is why certain encounters feel fated, why certain songs break you open, why some wounds ache without cause. Here's the question that rattles like thunder in the distance. If reality is a lattice, then who or what wove it? Was it the blind accident of physics, spinning patterns without purpose? Or was it the hand of something greater, a cosmic weaver, patient and deliberate? And if such a weaver exists, then are you truly free, or are you but a note already inscribed in the grand score? I want you to picture this lattice not as static but alive, a living, breathing, shifting network, threads pulsing with light, stretching across galaxies, down into atoms, inside your very heartbeat. Every star overhead is not alone, it's knotted into the same loom that holds the sparkle in your eyes. That's why when you stare at the night sky, you feel small and infinite at once, because you are seeing yourself reflected in cosmic silk. Yet there is a danger in the lattice too. for threads can tangle, distort, or fray. Trauma is not just a scar on the soul, it's a knot in the lattice, tightening the flow. Obsessions are threads looping endlessly, creating echoes that refuse to dissolve. And collective fear, wars, lies, despair, these are stains spreading across the web, vibrating through every being connected. Perhaps this is why you feel sorrow that isn't yours, or carry a grief you cannot name. You are receiving signals from the lattice, burdens carried not only by you, but by the entire weave. And still, in the heart of this vast structure, there is music. If you listen carefully, beneath the noise of cities, beneath the chatter of your restless mind, there is a faint hum, a tone so deep it feels like silence. This hum is the baseline of the lattice, the heartbeat of existence itself. Mystics who meditate for decades say they can hear it, the primordial sound, the vibration that sings before language, before form. The question then is whether you are content to walk upon the surface of reality, blind to the strands beneath your feet, or whether you will learn to see them, to tug them, to weave with them. Because if the lattice is real, then perhaps your life is not just a wandering. Perhaps you are a co-weaver, a singer within the symphony, your every thought and action resonating across eternity. And if you could learn to touch the lattice, to play it like an instrument, what would you change? What note would you add to the great web of being? The truth, my friend, is that the lattice is waiting. It always has been. There are nights when you wake with a weight on your chest, the air thick with the residue of dreams you can't quite recall. You sit up, sweat gathering at your temples, a taste of salt in your mouth, as if you've been weeping for someone you've never met. You brush it off as nothing, just the tricks of a restless brain. But what if I told you those fragments, those dream ghosts, are not illusions at all? What if they are echoes, signals bleeding through the lattice, fragments of lives you have already lived, or are still living elsewhere? The idea is both intoxicating and terrifying, that the soul, or whatever spark animates you, is not bound to a single story. It has wandered time and again across the fabric of existence, stitching itself into eras and bodies and names that slip away the moment you cross the threshold of death. Each life a note, and together they form your unseen melody. Think of déjà vu again, but let's press harder into its marrow. When you walk into a building you've never entered before, yet your body recognizes it. Your feet know the stairs, your hand anticipates the curve of the railing. Is it a glitch of memory, or is it your soul brushing against its own past, remembering footsteps it once laid down centuries ago? And then there are the faces, the strangers you pass in crowds who make your chest tighten, your breath stutter, as though your body recognizes them though your mind does not. Lovers from forgotten lives, perhaps, rivals, children. You'll never speak, yet in the fraction of a second your eyes meet. A whole universe of memory passes unspoken. These are the echoes, and they find you whether you ask for them or not. But here is the strange paradox. If your past lives are hidden beneath the veil, why do they bleed through? Why does the lattice, so carefully woven, allow its threads to fray? Perhaps because the past is not past at all. Time, after all, may not flow as a river, but exist all at once like pages already written. What you call a past life may still be happening, parallel to you, another note vibrating on the same cosmic string. The echoes, then, are resonance. You are a tuning fork struck in multiple realities, vibrating together, bleeding into each other. When you feel sorrow you cannot name, it may not belong to this life, but to another version of you kneeling in grief centuries ago. When you feel joy without cause, it may be the laughter of a self that still dances in a world you'll never visit. Now imagine this. What if some of your most powerful instincts are not instincts at all, but inheritances? A fear of water, of drowning, though you've never come close to death in the ocean. A strange comfort in firelight, though you've never lived without electricity. These may not be quirks of the brain, but scars and blessings carved into the soul, rippling forward. The lattice does not erase what has been. It remembers, and so do you, even if you do not realize it. But the echoes are not merely passive. They influence you, nudge you, whisper into your decisions. Have you ever wondered why certain choices feel heavier than they should? Why some roads terrify you though they look safe, while others call you forward with an inexplicable pull? Perhaps your other selves are guiding you, warning you, shaping you from behind the veil. Perhaps every love you choose or reject is part of a longer arc. A lesson repeated across lives until you finally hear it. And this is where it becomes dizzying. If echoes of your forgotten lives shape your choices now, then how many of your decisions are truly your own? What if what you call free will is the collision of voices across the lattice, each version of you tugging on the thread, steering the fabric this way and that? One you longs for safety, another for adventure, another for silence, another for love. You are the chorus, not the soloist, and the echoes never stop singing. There are some who have claimed glimpses of these forgotten selves. Children who speak fluently in languages they've never been taught. Dreamers who wake with visions of wars they never fought, only to discover the details match forgotten pages of history. Artists who paint landscapes from centuries past, down to the last detail of a village that no longer exists. Are they lying? Are they insane? Or are they tuned more finely to the lattice, their echoes louder than ours? Now imagine if you could tune yourself deliberately. What if, instead of waiting for these echoes to haunt you in fragments, you could remember them whole? You could recall every life, every story, every joy and sorrow carved into your soul. Would it be a gift to carry centuries of wisdom, to walk through this life with the weight of empires in your heart? Or would it be a curse to know too much, to never again feel the innocence of beginning? Because think carefully, to know your echoes is to carry their pain, to remember the betrayals, the losses, the failures that broke you again and again. Could you bear that? Could you wake each morning with not only your own grief, but the grief of dozens of lifetimes pressing down on your chest? Perhaps forgetting is not a flaw, but mercy. Perhaps the lattice silences most of its echoes out of compassion. And yet, despite the mercy, the fragments still come. In dreams and déjà vu. In the unshakable feeling that you have walked this road before. Perhaps it is because the soul, restless as it is, refuses to be silenced completely. It longs to be whole. It longs to sing its melody in full, not just in scattered notes. And so it pushes against the veil, echoing, until we feel it in our bones. So I ask you now, when you dream tonight, will you dismiss the faces that visit you, the cities you've never known, the emotions too vast to belong to this single life? Or will you dare to listen, to hear the echoes for what they are? Because the truth is this, you are not one story. You are not one life. You are an orchestra of selves playing across centuries, each one leaving vibrations in the lattice that will never die. The echoes are calling, and whether you turn away or lean in, they will never stop. Close your eyes with me, just for a moment. Imagine the silence of your mind, not the noisy chatter you hear all day, but the vast ocean underneath. Beneath the words, beneath the plans, beneath the anxieties of tomorrow, there lives a realm without grammar, without structure, without sound. It is the subconscious, and it speaks, but not in ways we are taught to listen. Its language is not English or Urdu or French or Chinese. Its language is image, sensation, rhythm. Its grammar is intuition. When intuition rises in you, when you feel that mysterious tug that cannot be reasoned out, what is happening is not magic. It is translation. The subconscious is trying to speak with you, but since it does not have words, it sends you symbols, flashes of images, sudden bodily sensations, or that inexplicable knowing that seems to come from nowhere. Think of a dream. Have you ever woken up heart pounding with no idea what the dream meant? You might have seen a bird, a crumbling tower, a stranger's face. You wake confused, maybe dismissive. But what if I told you that dreams are the raw tongue of the subconscious, speaking in metaphors because that is its native language? Intuition then is the subconscious bringing that dream language into waking life. Have you noticed how the body reacts before the mind has time to catch up? You step into a room and something feels wrong. You don't know why, but your shoulders stiffen, your heart rate quickens. Later, you learn there was tension in the air, a hidden hostility you had not consciously noticed. Your subconscious did. It picked up on the micro-expressions, the posture shifts, the subtle tones in voices, and it whispered to you through sensation. This is the language of the subconscious. It paints in feelings, in atmospheres, in symbols. It is why you sometimes just know when someone is lying, even without evidence. It is why you are drawn to certain people without being able to explain why. The subconscious is scanning, always storing, always processing far more than your conscious mind could ever handle. And then, when it has something important to say, it pushes it upward, like a diver surfacing with a seashell clutched in hand. But here is the paradox. We are not taught to listen to this language. From childhood, we are schooled in logic, in linear thought, in the strict frameworks of reason. We learn to distrust what we cannot explain, to dismiss it as irrational, and yet the subconscious does not care about explanation. It speaks whether or not you are listening. Intuition is always happening. The question is whether you will honor its voice or let it pass like background static. Think of the way music can move you. A song without lyrics can make you cry, lift you, devastate you. Why? Because music bypasses logic. It is sound as symbol, vibration as emotion. The subconscious understands this perfectly. It does not need the lyrics to know the meaning. Intuition works in much the same way. It is your inner music, humming beneath the surface, trying to guide you toward harmony. But just as music can be misinterpreted, one person hears joy, another sorrow, so too can intuition be misunderstood. The subconscious speaks in riddles, and sometimes we misread its metaphors. A tightening in the chest might mean danger, or it might simply mean memory. A pull towards someone might mean connection, or it might be a projection of your longing. To understand intuition, then, is not to treat it as gospel, but to learn the subtle dialect of your own subconscious. You see, the subconscious is not universal in its symbols. For one person, the sea may symbolize freedom. For another, it may symbolize death. Intuition borrows the palette of your personal experiences. This is why learning to listen to your intuition is, in truth, learning to listen to yourself. You are both the speaker and the interpreter of this hidden language. Now imagine how powerful this becomes when you cultivate awareness of the dialogue. You begin to notice, when my body feels tight in this way, it means I am afraid. When I feel expansive, open, even without reason, it means I am aligned. You build a dictionary of sensation, of symbol, and suddenly, intuition is no longer a whisper lost in the noise. It is a conversation. The subconscious also speaks in patterns, and you may find it echoing across your days in ways that seem uncanny. A number that keeps appearing, a symbol that repeats in dreams, a song that follows you. You dismiss it as coincidence. But what if it is your subconscious insisting on a message, knocking on the door of your awareness again and again until you pay attention? And then comes the deeper mystery. Perhaps intuition is not merely your subconscious, but the subconscious connected to something larger, the collective unconscious, as Jung once described it, a shared reservoir of human symbols, archetypes, and wisdom. When your intuition speaks, perhaps it is not just your own life whispering, it is the voice of humanity itself, echoing through the corridors of the psyche. So I ask you, dear listener, what is the language your subconscious speaks in? Have you noticed its symbols, its rhythms, its ways of reaching you? Share them below. Your dreams, your recurring images, your unexplained sensations. Because when you put them into words, you help others recognize their own. And together, we begin to build a shared lexicon for the hidden tongue of intuition. For now, let us sit with this. Intuition is the poetry of the subconscious, translated into the body. It is not always literal, not always accurate, but it is always honest. It does not tell you what is true in the outside world. It tells you what is true in your inner one. And sometimes, that is the compass you need most. We grow up believing we have 5 doors into the world: sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. 5 gateways through which reality spills into us. But what if I told you there are other doors, hidden, unmarked, yet always open? Doors you have walked through countless times without naming them. These are the senses that whisper beneath the surface, the quiet instruments of intuition. Close your eyes and imagine this. You are walking down a quiet street. The air is still, the house is silent. Suddenly, the hairs on your arms rise, your breath shortens, and though nothing has changed to your 5 senses, you feel it, a presence. Someone is behind you. You turn, and there they are. How did you know? Your eyes did not see, your ears did not hear, yet your body spoke first. This is not imagination. It is the 6th sense, an attunement to subtle cues, electromagnetic shifts, and vibrations that science only half understands. The subconscious gathers fragments too delicate for your conscious mind to notice. The faint sound of footsteps blending into the wind, the pressure of air displaced behind you, the rhythm of your own breath shifting in response to another's. Intuition strings these fragments together and delivers the message not as words, but as certainty. And yet, the 6th sense is only the beginning. There are other ways of knowing, hidden beneath the floorboards of perception. There is proprioception, the sense of where your body exists in space. You can close your eyes and touch your nose without missing. Extend this inward, and intuition becomes proprioception of the soul. You just know when you are out of place in a situation or perfectly aligned, as if your inner self had its own coordinates. There is chronesthesia, the sense of time not as minutes on a clock, but as a felt reality. Haven't you known moments when the future felt heavier than the present? When an upcoming event already pulsed in your body long before it unfolded? That is intuition reaching across the lattice of time, tasting what has not yet come. There is magnetoreception, an orientation to fields unseen. Migratory birds use it to cross the earth. Some scientists suspect humans too carry a faint compass within. Perhaps your sudden urge to turn left instead of right is not random at all, but your inner magnet tugging you toward a path you cannot name. And then there is empathy. Not mere emotion, but a sixth sense of its own. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the atmosphere, as if emotions hung thick in the air like mist? You feel someone's sadness before they speak it, someone's joy before they smile. Empathy is intuition tuned to others, a sense that bends the boundaries between your heart and theirs. These extra senses are not mystical. They are simply unnamed. But when gathered, when listened to together, they form the foundation of intuition. They are the bridges between the rational and the ineffable, between what science can measure and what your soul already knows. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote, "The only journey is the one within." Intuition is that journey mapped not in miles, but in sensations. It tells you where to walk, when to pause, who to trust, and when to turn away. And so often, it speaks through senses that slip between the cracks of the five we are taught to honor. But here is the question. Why are we taught to dismiss them? Why are children, so naturally intuitive, told again and again that what they feel is not real, that only what they can prove exists? Perhaps because intuition cannot be standardized, cannot be measured, cannot be controlled. It belongs to the individual, raw and untamed. And so society urges us to favor the measurable senses, the five, while the others remain hidden. Yet still they whisper, still they guide. Have you noticed them? Have you ever walked into a place and felt without reason that you should leave? Or met someone who made you instantly lighter, though you could not explain why? These are your unseen senses speaking, tuning your body into harmony or discord with the world around you. So I ask you now, which of these hidden senses has guided you most often? Have you trusted it, or have you silenced it, convincing yourself it was just imagination? Share it below in the comments. Let others see that they are not alone in feeling what cannot be named. Because intuition is not one voice. It is a chorus, sung by senses you never knew you carried. And when you begin to listen to them all, not just the five you were taught, but the others that live in your bones, you awaken to a deeper reality, a reality that cannot be seen but only felt. There is a language that bypasses the tongue, leaps over the mind, and goes straight into the marrow of you. It is the language of the heart, and it is one of intuition's most faithful messengers. You have felt it before, I am certain, that quiet pull in your chest that tells you to stay, to go, to trust, to beware. It is not logic, it is not even thought. It is something older, softer, yet more unshakable. The compass of the heart. Think of a moment when someone spoke to you and every word sounded right, yet something inside you whispered, no. Their smile may have been practiced, their tone warm, their story flawless, but the heart did not believe. Why? Because beneath the words, you felt an absence. The tone was hollow, the gaze was fleeting. Your heart knew what your mind could not yet articulate. That is emotional truth, uncovered by intuition. And then, think of the opposite, a moment when someone spoke haltingly, imperfectly, without charm or polish, yet you knew instantly that their words were real. Something in their presence rang like a bell through your chest. You trusted before you understood. You leaned in before you could explain why. Again, this was not logic. It was your heart recognizing alignment. This is the strange and tender truth. The heart has its own intelligence, not poetic metaphor alone, but literal biology. Scientists have discovered a heart brain, a cluster of neurons woven into the heart itself, capable of independent thought and influence. Your heart does not simply pump blood, It perceives, it remembers, it reacts. And when intuition rises from this center, it comes not as calculation, but as feeling, as a resonance or dissonance within your very chest. Have you ever stood before a decision and felt your chest tighten, heavy as stone? That is the heart's compass pointing away, whispering, not this path. And have you ever felt the opposite? That lightening in your chest, a subtle opening, a soft expansion even when the choice was terrifying. That is the heart saying, yes, this is the way. Notice something important here. The heart's compass does not always point toward comfort. Sometimes what feels safe to the mind feels stagnant to the heart, and sometimes what terrifies the mind feels alive to the heart. This is because intuition does not serve fear. It serves truth, and truth often asks us to step beyond what is easy. Think of love. When we fall, it is rarely logical. On paper, it may not make sense, yet the heart insists. It whispers, here is home. And sometimes it is right, sometimes it is wrong, but even in its mistakes, there is truth. The truth of what we needed to feel, to learn, to grow. Intuition in love is perhaps the clearest example of the heart's compass in motion. But intuition through the heart does not only speak of relationships, it guides our purpose as well. Have you ever pursued something that looked good to everyone else, yet your chest felt hollow every step of the way? Success without resonance is emptiness. And have you ever done something small, something others barely noticed, yet your chest glowed with quiet fire? That is the heart telling you, this matters. And so I ask you now, what decisions in your life were guided not by reason, not by fear, but by that unmistakable compass in your chest? Did you listen? Or did you ignore it, only to realize later the heart had been right all along? If you feel safe to share, leave your story below, because your truth may be the mirror someone else needs to recognize their own. There is care in saying this too. The heart's compass is not infallible. Sometimes it is clouded by wounds, by longing, by unmet needs. Sometimes what feels like truth is only the ache of healing unfinished. This is why intuition is best honored not blindly, but with awareness. You place the heart's voice beside the mind's reasoning, not to silence it, but to see the fuller picture. When the heart says yes and the mind says no, pause. When the heart says no and the mind says yes, pause. In the pause lies the wisdom, the place where you can ask, is this fear? Is this truth? Is this old pain? Is this new possibility? Slowly, you learn to distinguish between them. Slowly, you learn the dialect of your own compass. Because at the end of the day, your heart is not trying to mislead you. It is trying to guide you toward what makes you feel most alive. Its compass does not point to safety or certainty. It points to meaning, to resonance, to the places where your soul can breathe fully. And that is perhaps the most sacred gift intuition offers. So tonight, before you close your eyes, place a hand over your chest. Feel the rhythm there, not just the beat of blood, but the quiet intelligence beneath it. Ask it a question, then wait, not for words, but for sensation. Does your chest soften? Does it tighten? Does it expand? That is your compass answering. That is intuition speaking. And when you learn to follow it, you are not led astray. You are led home. Every mind is a chamber, vaulted, echoing, lined with corridors where memories walk like figures of mist. Some are vivid, luminous, so sharp they pierce us even years later. Others are smudged at the edges, whisper-thin, fading like chalk under the rain. But the strangest ones are those that refuse to obey, the memories that speak back to us, that contradict the walls we've built inside. These are the echoes, the memories that don't quite align, leaving us to wonder, did it happen this way? Or have we been tricked by the tricks of our own mind? Think for a moment. Close your eyes and try to summon a memory. Your childhood kitchen, perhaps. Can you smell the bread baking? The faint scent of dust from the open window? The scrape of a chair across the tiles? Every detail feels real. You can almost step back into that room. And yet, what if I told you that one of those details is false? What if the window never faced the east? What if the table was round, not square? Would your memory collapse? Or would it stubbornly fight for its truth, insisting on its version of reality? This is the haunting paradox of the echo chamber. Memories repeat themselves inside us, bouncing, reshaping, distorting as they return. And every time we revisit them, we are not retrieving the original. No, we are recreating it, like an artist repainting the same scene with slightly altered strokes. The result is a memory that feels whole but is, in fact, an echo of an echo, a copy of a copy. And in that fragile process, possibility slips in, a word misheard, a detail misplaced, a story retold, and suddenly a false note is woven into the song. Yet the mind, desperate for coherence, embraces it as truth. That's how false memories are born, how entire lives can be narrated around events that never truly occurred. And if enough people share the same echo, if the chamber amplifies their whispers, it becomes not just memory, but history. Imagine a group of children at a park. Years later, one swears that the swing set was painted red, another insists it was green. They argue, laugh, debate. Time passes. More voices join, and slowly the version most often repeated drowns out the others. The echo chamber has chosen its memory, and soon even those who once saw green now remember red. The truth has been replaced, erased, not by force, but by the fragile, suggestible nature of human recall. This is why memory is not a vault, not a sacred archive, but a living, breathing organism, mutable, vulnerable, prone to persuasion. In the echo chamber, one whisper becomes thunder, one mistake becomes dogma. It is both beautiful and terrifying. Beautiful because it reveals the creativity of the human mind, terrifying because it shows how easily we can be deceived, even by ourselves. So when the Mandela effect surfaces, when thousands of people remember a line, an event, an object differently from how the record shows, it is not merely confusion. It is the echo chamber of memory at its loudest, reverberating across millions of minds, shaping a false yet deeply felt truth. And here is the strangest part. Those echoes often feel more real than the original. They cling, they insist, they demand to be believed. It's as though the chamber is alive, as though the memory itself wants to survive, even if it must distort itself to do so. Now ask yourself, how many of your memories are echoes? How many are originals? Can you tell the difference? Or have you already been singing along to the chorus of 1,000 whispered lies? Step with me into a realm where science and memory intertwine, where the fragile architecture of our recall meets the cold, precise mathematics of physics. We often treat memory as if it exists only inside the folds of the human brain, tangled in neurons and electrical sparks. But what if memory is not confined to the body at all? What if memory is a field, a pattern etched into the very structure of reality, like ripples on the surface of water that never entirely fade? Physicists speak of the conservation of energy, the idea that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. A sound wave dissipates into vibrations. Heat becomes motion, light becomes electricity. The universe is a master of preservation. So why then should memory be different? Why should our experiences, once lived, vanish into the void simply because our neurons falter? Imagine this. Every moment you live, every heartbeat, every breath leaves an impression, not just on your mind, but on the space around you. Like chalk marks on the blackboard of existence, your choices and sensations inscribe themselves into the invisible fabric we call space-time. When you walk through a room, you disturb the air, alter the temperature, shift the balance of photons. Physics insists that none of this disappears. It disperses, yes, but it persists. In that sense, perhaps memories aren't erased. They are scattered, woven into the atmosphere itself. Now let's turn this over in the light of the Mandela effect. Could it be that when so many people recall a version of reality that does not match the record, they are not merely confused, but brushing against one of these scattered fields? Perhaps they are sensing the echo of an alternate inscription, a ghost memory lingering in the universal ledger, like faint radio stations overlapping on the same frequency. These echoes bleed into consciousness, creating an experience that feels authentic because, in some strange way, it is. Consider déjà vu, the uncanny sensation of having lived a moment before. Neuroscientists explain it as a glitch, the brain confusing short-term memory with long-term memory. But what if déjà vu is a moment of attunement, a brief alignment where your personal perception tunes into one of those cosmic imprints? For a second, you are standing in both the now and its echo, in both the original note and the reverberation that followed. This would explain why Mandela effects are often collective. If memories exist not only in brains but in the physics of space itself, then multiple minds can tune into the same lingering pattern. Just as countless radios can receive the same broadcast, countless people can remember a truth that never officially existed. Their brains are not fabricating chaos. They are harmonizing with an old frequency. And yet, the physics of forgotten truths is not gentle. Like a shattered mirror, it offers only fragments. A remembered cereal box logo might appear slightly altered, a line from a beloved film misquoted, a map showing borders that never were. These fragments do not form a new whole. They flicker, half-truths straining against the narrative we've been told, and so we dismiss them as mistakes. But deep down, the heart resists, because the echo feels more authentic than the official version. Now consider entropy, the universe's inevitable drift toward disorder. In physics, entropy increases because systems seek balance. In memory, perhaps entropy is what erodes details, smudges lines, frays certainties. The echo chamber of memory, as we spoke earlier, is not immune to entropy. Each retelling wears the truth thinner, distorts it further. But what if paradoxically those distortions align with another layer of reality? What if entropy in memory opens gateways, allowing us to stumble into neighboring truths that coexist, hidden in the folds of space-time? Picture two overlapping photographs, one slightly transparent. You see both images at once, edges blurring, faces misaligned. Your brain struggles to choose which is real, but perhaps they both are. Perhaps the physics of memory is not binary, not this or that, but a spectrum. A multiverse of truths where each version insists on its existence. So when we say, our memory betrayed us, maybe we are wrong. Maybe it is not betrayal at all. Maybe our minds are not failing, but reaching, stretching beyond their biological limits, straining to touch something larger, something the laws of physics already whisper. Nothing is lost. Not energy, not sound, not memory. The haunting question remains. If all memories are preserved in the physics of the universe, scattered but eternal, then what happens when we die? Do our memories dissolve into nothing, or do they return to the field, joining the infinite collection of echoes? And if so, could it be that every so-called false memory is not false at all, but a visitation, a flicker of another's truth, drifting into your chamber of thought like dust on a sunbeam? If that is true, then the Mandela effect is not an error. It is evidence. Proof that the physics of forgotten truths is alive and humming all around us. Proof that our minds are not isolated vaults, but antennas, forever scanning the air for signals that whisper, reality is wider than you can ever hold. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the universe not as a vast expanse of stars and galaxies, but as an endless ocean of vibrations, tiny quanta humming in silent synchrony. Each particle, each flicker of energy is not simply there. It exists in a shimmering probability, a blur of possibility that only sharpens when observed. This is the foundation of quantum mechanics, and strangely, it may also hold the key to the Mandela effect. Think of memory not as a static photograph, but as a quantum state. Every time you recall a memory, you are not pulling a file from a drawer, you are collapsing a probability wave. The act of remembering is an act of measurement. You shine your inner spotlight on the past, and in that moment, it takes shape. But just as in physics, the act of observation changes the observed. Each recollection slightly alters the wave, rewrites the pattern, reshapes the truth. Now imagine this process happening not in isolation, but collectively. Millions of minds remembering together, collapsing their probability waves at the same time. Could this collective act of observation give rise to alternate outcomes? Could the universe itself shift ever so slightly to accommodate the gravitational weight of human memory? Here's where it becomes strange. In quantum theory, particles can exist in superposition, multiple states at once, until measured. What if memories too exist in superposition? A childhood memory of a cartoon bear, for instance, might hover between two versions, one with a missing letter, another with a complete spelling. Both exist in potential, but once remembered, one collapses into your personal timeline. When you and I discuss it, we may find we collapsed into different outcomes, both certain, both true. This is not just poetic fancy. Physicists have shown that particles separated by vast distances can remain entangled, their states mysteriously linked. When one particle changes, its twin reflects that change instantly, as if space and time do not matter. Could human minds likewise be entangled across the invisible web of consciousness? Could collective memory function as a quantum field, where shifts ripple across minds with uncanny precision? If so, then the Mandela effect becomes less a glitch and more a manifestation of entanglement. A group of people, bound by unseen threads of consciousness, may jump together into an alternate collapse of memory. The world outside insists they are mistaken. But within the quantum ocean, their truth is as valid as any other. Think about how fragile reality feels in these moments. A logo that once had a curl suddenly appears plain. A line from a movie is different, despite being etched in your mind with perfect clarity. It's as if the universe briefly blinked, and when your eyes opened, something had shifted. But perhaps the blink was not the universe's, it was yours. A quantum slip of memory, an alternate collapse of possibility, a parallel echo brushing against your awareness. This invites a haunting thought. If our memories can collapse into different outcomes, does this mean there are countless versions of us, scattered across countless worlds, each holding slightly different truths? And when enough of those worlds overlap, when enough versions of us converge in the same misremembered detail, we feel it. We call it false memory. But what if it is simply many worlds' resonance, a chorus of timelines humming together? And here is where the poetic truth emerges. Memory is not a static archive, it is a living quantum dance. It shifts, it hums, it vibrates with possibility. And the Mandela effect? It may be the sound of multiple realities brushing shoulders in the crowded hallway of the mind. So I ask you, what do you remember that others deny? What fragment of your past refuses to align with the world around you? Share it in the comments below. Let us gather these scattered notes of the cosmic symphony. Because maybe, just maybe, your false memory is not an error at all. Maybe it is proof that you have touched the quantum echo, proof that you have glimpsed the parallel hum that underlies all of existence. And perhaps, the more we share these echoes, the louder they become, until the universe itself cannot ignore the song we are singing. There is a long, patient river that runs beneath history, a current where science and story do not fight but lean toward one another like old friends. On the banks of that river sit two tribes, one with telescopes and equations, the other with chants and firelight. Both have listened to the same subtle music for millennia. Tonight, at this quiet bend, we set them side by side and watch what happens when the quantum whisper meets the old, wise mouth of myth. The modern mind wants tidy categories. Physics over here, ritual over there. But listen closely and you will hear the same word arriving from both directions. Interconnected. Quantum mechanics, with its strange entanglements and superpositions, reveals a universe where separation is an illusion. Particles converse across space. Possibility blooms and then folds into reality when observed. Ancient traditions, with their myths and meditations, have always insisted on a similar truth. That the world is woven. That minds are not islands. That memory and meaning ebb through a shared sea. Where scientists point to equations and experiments, mystics point to practices. Songs, rites, repeated attention that open the doors of perception. Both are methods of tuning. Consider the mystic's stance. For thousands of years, seers, shamans, monks, and poets have trained to hear beyond the five senses. They sit in silence, chant the same sound until their nervous systems soften, practice rituals that repeat the same pattern until the mind's chatter thins. What happens then is not fantasy. Perception shifts, time dilates, symbols begin to feel alive. The walls between self and world thin until the seer senses currents that are normally invisible. An ancestral grief in a valley, a warning in a bird call, the echo of a life that never finished. These practitioners called what they heard by various names. Akasha, the world soul, the great memory, the Tao. They spoke of being in tune with something larger. They described experiences that, in our language, sound eerily like entanglement and resonance. Now look at the physicist. They isolate a system, perform a measurement, collapse a wave. They find that observation changes outcome. They build experiments that suggest information is not strictly local. That correlations exist without a visible bridge. The world is less a set of tiny billiard balls and more a choir of probabilities awaiting the conductor's cue. When large ensembles of observers make similar measurements, patterns emerge that are not easily reduced to private illusion. Collective observation, in some interpretations, nudges outcomes. In others, it simply highlights that reality resists being separated into neat, independent parts. So here is the meeting. Mystics teach methods to attend. Physics describes how attention alters what is observed. Both imply that attention is creative. Both suggest that memory, personal, cultural, perhaps cosmic, is not inert. It is participatory. When people gather around a belief or a story, when they chant the same name, When millions remember a detail in the same way, they are not merely repeating a falsehood or reciting fiction. They are, in one sense, tuning an instrument. The Mandela effect becomes less of a glitch and more of a phenomenon in which human attention, carried by culture and language, resonates with a field of possibilities until one note becomes louder than the others. Imagine a village that prays a river into health. Skeptical science would ask for metrics. Does the water chemistry change? The mystic would say something else happened. People shifted, behaviors aligned, offerings stopped some harms. Both answers can be true. Collective attention changed the system, whether through practical behavioral alteration or through subtler energetic realignments. Memory and reality then are braided. What we remember influences how we behave. How we behave alters the world. Altered world feeds new memories. It is a loop, a feedback that can amplify small ripples into tidal changes. This is where the Mandela effect sits like a tiny bell, a line in a movie remembered differently by millions. Is it only faulty recollection, or the audible proof that many minds once resonated with a different collapse of possibility? When people chant the same name for decades, they do not only preserve a word, they preserve a pattern of attention that can shape perception collectively. The ancients called it invocation. Modern thinkers might call it emergent consensus. Both phrases point to the same strange fact. Attention is not neutral. It leaves footprints. There are practices across cultures that seem to harness this. Indigenous storytellers pass songs that preserve landscapes and lore. Monastic communities read the same scripture for generations, each repetition weaving the memory tighter. In some rites, a name repeated enough becomes an invitation, not because of superstition, but because repetition implants pattern into the social and the psychic field. Over long timescales, this becomes a memory that feels like fact. Generations inherit it as if it were a fossilized truth. The Mandela effect may be our modern mirror of that ancient process, a digital age palimpsest, where internet chatter amplifies a remembered detail until it feels universal. And there is tenderness in this overlap. For if both quantum physics and ancient ritual point to a participatory universe, then you are not merely a passenger, you are also a composer. The stories you tell, the facts you rehearse, the images you pin to memory, they matter. When communities gather in remembrance, they are not merely rehearsing the past. They are shaping the present lens through which the world is perceived. This can be used for harm or healing. Collective memory can harden into dogma, yes. It can also become a source of communal resilience, a way for societies to remember what matters and to keep fragile wisdom alive. But the intersection also calls for humility. If memory and observation are so entangled, then the line between objective fact and shared truth blurs. That does not mean all things are equally true. The world still pushes back, gravity still pulls, water still drowns. Yet there are textures of reality, logos, names, little details that may be more malleable than we once believed. Our job, if we wish to be wise participants in this strange cosmos, is to learn how to hold what matters lightly and what matters deeply with fierce care. To honor facts, yes, but also to respect the enormous power of collective attention. So what do you do with this? You breathe, you notice how you remember, you tell stories responsibly, you test your recollections gently, ask, verify, be curious rather than defensive. And when you find yourself in the middle of a Mandela moment, where memory and record diverge, consider both possibilities, that you may be misremembering, and that you may be glimpsing a communal resonance that science is only beginning to name. Hold both with kindness. Before we move on, here is a simple practice. Spend 5 evenings this week in quiet. Choose one small detail that matters to you, a family recipe, a local place name, a childhood rhyme, and say it aloud with intention. Notice how saying it reshapes your day, how it alters the stories you share. See whether repeating it softens the edges of your experience or sharpens them. In that modest test, you will begin to feel how attention is not passive but creative. And if this chord sings to you, if this meeting of modern whisper and ancient mouth settles into your bones, then let us gather more echoes together. Share below a memory you hold dear that others deny, or a rite your family repeats that keeps something alive. Let us be careful, co-weavers, because we live in the loom we tend. There are nights when sleep does not come as silence, but as story. When your dreams feel less like private flickers of the mind, and more like borrowed tapes from a library you never entered. You wake with details that do not belong to you, a city you've never visited, a face you've never known, a song in a language you cannot speak. Where do these fragments come from? And why do they feel so familiar? Some cultures would smile at your question because they have carried an answer for centuries. Among the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, there is the dream time, a sacred space outside of linear chronology where past, present, and future coexist. In dream time, the ancestors walk, shape the land, sing rivers into being, etch lore into the bones of the earth. To dream is to enter that timeless memory field, to tune into a layer of reality where events are not locked in history, but still breathing. Is this not strikingly close to what we whisper about in the Mandela effect? A memory shared across thousands, surfacing uninvited, existing even when the official record denies it. Perhaps dreamtime is not myth, but an earlier language for the same experience. A recognition that memory is not sealed in skulls, but flows like groundwater beneath us all. Let us fold science into this vision. Neuroscience tells us that dreams stitch fragments together, filing away sensations, blending reality with imagination. But physics, particularly in its quantum murmur, suggests something more radical. Information may not be destroyed. What if dreams are not simply your brain's nighttime housekeeping, but moments when your perception loosens enough to wander through the field of preserved echoes? Those forgotten truths we spoke of earlier. In sleep, when the ego softens and the walls of logic crumble, perhaps your antenna extends further, brushing the records of lives not your own. This is where collective memory enters, when a detail emerges in your dream that matches the dream of a stranger across the world. How do we explain it? Psychologists might call it coincidence, but myth and physics might conspire to whisper, no coincidence, only resonance. Just as instruments in an orchestra vibrate in sympathy, human minds may tremble together in the field of dream. And what of the Mandela effect itself? Could it be a form of dream time leaking into waking hours? A collective dream memory that insists on surfacing, carrying the texture of truth even when timelines disagree. If enough people dream the same story, who is to say it does not, in some sense, become real? Now pause and ask yourself, what is the oldest dream you can remember? Not the one from last night, but the one that clings to you from childhood. The one that still feels alive. Does it not have the flavor of memory, even though no one around you shares it? Write it down. Let it rest in your hands like a fossil. Because perhaps that dream was never just a dream. Perhaps it was your first taste of the collective, your first sip from the river beneath the world. When science and tradition stand side by side, the picture sharpens. Memory is not linear. It is a weave, a fabric stitched by billions of threads, some glowing bright with personal detail, others humming faintly with collective echoes. Dreams are where the weave shows itself. Mandela effects may be the loose threads we tug when waking. So I invite you, next time you dream, do not dismiss it as random static. Ask yourself, whose memory have I just borrowed? What ancestral echo have I stumbled into? And if you wake with a detail that refuses to fade, a name, a face, a map of a place you've never seen, share it, because maybe it belongs not only to you, but to us all. And as you rest tonight, remember, you are not falling into sleep. You are entering the dream time of collective memory, the place where forgotten truths hum patiently, waiting for us to listen. My friend, if you've walked with me this far, then you've wandered through a labyrinth of whispers, echoes of memory, ripples of physics, chants of ancestors, the delicate shimmer of dreams. And now, as we arrive at the quiet edge of tonight's journey, let me not send you away, but rather wrap you in something soft, something steady, something that feels like home. Because this isn't only about the Mandela effect, or intuition, or quantum echoes. No. Beneath all of it, beneath the science and the myth, the equations and the stories, there was always you. Your memory, your tenderness, your desire to understand why reality sometimes feels slippery, and why your heart insists on truths the world may not confirm. That longing itself is proof that you are alive in the deepest sense. You are not a machine reciting facts. You are a soul weaving meaning. So let me say this to you, gently, slowly, so that it sinks in like warm tea in the body. You are not broken for remembering differently. You are not flawed for feeling the world does not always match your mind. If anything, that sensitivity makes you luminous. It means your antenna is tuned. It means you are awake to the shimmer in the cracks of reality. That is a gift, not a curse. And tonight, I want you to breathe with me. Inhale the thought that you belong here. Exhale the weight of needing to have all the answers. The truth is, none of us have them. Not scientists, not mystics, not wanderers like us. We are all learning together by telling and retelling the stories that shape us. And in that act, in that gentle repetition, we become each other's memory keepers. If this journey touched something in you, leave your echo behind. Tell me in the comments what you remember that no one else does, or share the dream that still feels like truth. By writing it, by speaking it, you give it a place in our shared chamber of echoes. And perhaps someone else, listening in the quiet, will read your words and whisper, "I remember it too." And if you wish to walk this road with me again, if you wish to sink into more nights like this, where science and poetry sit side by side, where your heart is seen and your mind is fed, then subscribe. It's such a small gesture, but it keeps this lantern burning. It lets me know you are out there, listening in the dark, keeping me company as much as I keep you. Now, as you lay your head down, let the noise of the day drift away. Let the unanswered questions curl into the corners, waiting for tomorrow. Tonight is not for solving. Tonight is for resting in the mystery. You are safe here, you are cherished here, and in the soft spaces between thoughts, in that gentle drifting towards sleep, perhaps you will feel the collective dream embrace you. The dream time, the cosmic memory, the river that remembers everything. So rest, beloved listener. Rest with love, rest with wonder, rest with the certainty that your presence here matters. May your sleep be sweet, your dreams generous, and may you wake knowing that the world is wider, kinder, and more mysterious than you've ever been told. Good night. From my voice to your ears, from this small corner of the universe to the expanse of your heart. Until we meet again, remember, nothing is ever truly lost. Not memories, not you.